Hi and welcome. This weekend, the whole great team met for the first time in what we call a great together. We had Derek, our colleague, flying all the way from Florida. We had Joachim, our head of product, come in from Vienna. And everyone could kind of feel what each other was like in real life. And for me, the most intense and most real part of this whole weekend was when Joachim, our head of product, explained the vision, Erik's vision for great, to the whole team. And what was so special about that moment is that Erik's fiance, Johanna, she started crying. She thought it was so beautiful to see someone else being able to explain what was in Erik's head for so long. And I'm gonna explain a little bit more why she was crying in a minute. But before I do, and if you're new here, this is the Becoming Great podcast. A podcast where me and my buddy and boss, Erik Bergman, talk about how to become great people and how to build a great organization, great.com, a charity that will give away 100% of its profits to charity. And today, like I said, we're going to talk about the vision of great. And this is the first part of a two-part series where in the next episode of Becoming Great, we will talk about the strategies that we have to fulfill this vision. But this episode is going to be about vision. And now it's time to let Erik into this call. Erik, what's going on?
Well, thank you for having me. One thing that I think is valuable to add to that is that we had never met before. So the Great Together was the first time a lot of people actually met, which made it so real, and suddenly these two-dimensional screen people became three-dimensional real people you could actually hug and stuff.
I think I said that, but maybe not. I'm in a very comfortable chair now. It's Erik's chair. So I feel more relaxed than in any episode so far, I think. I kind of like it. So
yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy you're happy.
I'm very happy. So why did you feel a need to set a vision for great at this point anyway?
I really didn't. So I really didn't. So this was Joachim's idea to set a vision. And personally, I was like, fuck that shit. I don't want to set a vision. I don't want to waste time setting a vision.
Why that negative reaction?
Because I've done... Basically, Joachim wanted us to have this strategy consultant coming in and helping us. And I've done these kinds of workshops in the past. And my experience of that is that, okay, let's come up with some things that look cool. Let's create this golden island somewhere that we want to go to, and then we write that this is what we're doing. We put some fancy words on a wall or somewhere, and then we don't really live by them. It's just there because, well, we claim that it's there, and it's an expensive process that takes a lot of time. And I haven't seen when I've done this in the past, to me it's just been something that's just done to please investors or to show off, but actually doesn't mean anything.
That makes sense. And if you're curious kind of what businesses Erik has been running in the past, I highly recommend that you check out the last episode. I think it's number 31, called The Story of Erik. So what happened then? Why did you agree to do it this time?
Well, I've hired him and I'm paying him, so I figured I gotta listen to what he says. And kind of, well, it's kind of, if I'm hiring someone because I think they're smart and they're highly recommending this, even if I think it's stupid, then I should probably consider it. So I agreed, and I told him, like, I think this is a really shitty idea. I don't want to do it, but let's do it anyway. And he appreciated my honesty and said, okay, I'm hoping I can prove you at least somewhat wrong, and we can go ahead with that. So it started with me not wanting to do it at all, and him arguing that this is a very good thing, and me trusting his judgment.
What was his main argument then for doing it? What do you think he wanted to get out of it?
he didn't really need to argue that much for it. I kind of just gave in and say, if you believe in this, I'm gonna believe in it. Looking back, I can see that it's very valuable for a lot of things. That basically, if the vision is just in my head, for me the vision is clear. I know what I want to do, but then I tell you, and then you tell someone, and then you tell someone, and it becomes kind of like this whispering game you did as a child. I'm not sure what it's called in English. But I whisper and describe something to you, and then you describe it to someone else, and then it goes to someone else. And the third person, I probably heard something completely different. So by getting the vision out of my head and down on a paper, it's actually explainable. You can actually just forward the paper to whoever needs to read it or understand it. And yeah, for me, it was kind of game changer when Mike, this consultant we had on, said to me that, yeah, the vision and the strategy, that's what the team will talk about if I'm not in the room. So if we have it written down, they know what to say and we're aligned. But if there's not written down, it's just me who told 5 different versions to 5 different people, it's gonna be something else. And that was something like, I kind of agree to this. This makes sense.
So with that in mind, do you think this is something that any entrepreneur should consider? Let's say someone is running a small business. Do you think they should spend a lot of time on developing their vision? Or maybe even hire a consultant like you did?
I don't think you even need to run a company for this to be beneficial. So basically, a vision is where you want to go, and a strategy is how to get there. So if you don't have a vision in mind, if you haven't thought this through, then you're not sure what direction you're heading in. Let's say you can start in Sweden and you want to go on vacation, and you're just going to backpack around and see where it ends up. It might be a great trip, it might be a horrible trip. That's like going out on a vacation without a vision. But if you know for sure that you want to see the Chinese wall, and you've read about that, and that's been your dream for a long time, then you know that that's where you want to go. So if you thought about it, like, okay, this is what I actually want, then your vision of that trip is to see the Chinese wall. And it's much more likely that you're going to get to it if you've actually thought on it on beforehand. It's not necessarily the best way, or it's not necessarily the only good way, but it's a lot more likely that you get what you want if you've actually thought about it. So I think that this could be applicable either for a business, a small company, like, okay, where do I want this company to be in 3 years? But I think it's equally important for an individual, like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life in the next 3 years or 10 years or 50 years, and actually have a thought about that and talk about that with someone and figuring it out. Because, well, I haven't done that before, and this became helpful in that process as well.
So setting a vision can be useful for both individuals and a company. So let's get into then, what did you, Joachim, and Mike, this consultant, actually do? What was the kind of workshop, I guess, you did to set this vision? And if you talk about that, keep in mind, what can an individual do to set or upgrade a vision that they already have when answering that question?
Okay, so Mike started with reading a bunch of things that I've written and podcasts I've been and stuff like that, which was basically just a way to save time and still manage to get inside of my head.
So he looked at all things you previously done on like the great.com website, our podcast, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which was a shortcut of talking less to me, basically. So this could have been talking more to me instead. So basically he sat down and spoke to me, and he asked me, okay, what is it that you want to accomplish with great.com? And I told him a bunch of things. And it's like, okay, if there was only one thing you can accomplish, what would that be? And kind of, okay, that's tricky. So kind of have to prioritize and see what's actually the most important for me. So that could be a personal question as well. Okay, if you're only going to accomplish one thing in your life, what would that be? And I can ask you that question. One thing that you're going to accomplish in your life, what would that be?
I couldn't answer that in less than 5 minutes, I think. I would have to really give it a think. Well,
yeah.
In that sense, I like the question because it really forces you to think deeply.
Yeah. For me, the first thing that comes to head is actually become a father. So that's like my main priority in life. which is an interesting thing to actually land on. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's the first thing that comes to me. And for great, my main thing is to make significant impact. That's if we can only do one thing, then we want to make a big impact in people's lives, one way or another. There are a lot of ways of doing that, but that's like the main thing. So he kept asking these questions. What is it that's important to me? How do I see this, and how do I prioritize them? And he basically, I think it's very beneficial to do this as two people, because one person can kind of hear what's important to the other, and it might be harder to understand it myself. So if you and I are talking, you can probably pick up when I get the most enthusiastic or most passionate about something, which is probably what I care about the most.
So if someone is, as an individual, running a small company, do you think it's worth paying for a consultant that would do this, or would any friend kind of be sufficient?
I think that you can get a long way with just a friend. I think a consultant is expensive, and you can probably get a long way with just yourself and the paper, just writing down what is the most thing that matters for me. And I think in just a few hours of doing this, I think you will get a long way thinking about what is it that I actually want. If I could picture myself 10 years from now, what is actually important for me? Is that to have started a company, or is that to have grown a company? Is that to have traveled a lot? Is it to have become a father? And then look at your life from today. Okay, what is it that I actually need to change? Maybe I can't stay at this job I don't like. Maybe I need to take that course of leadership, or maybe I want to do something else. And actually, it's a lot easier to backtrack what you need to do if you know where you're going. If you really want to see the wall of China, you're like, okay, I need 2,000 euros to get there. Then you know that you kind of need that. And if you don't think about what you actually want to do, it's hard to say what is missing. To answer the question, I don't think you need an expensive consultant to get there. It can help you, and it can definitely help if you want to build king-size company and doing a lot of difference in 50 years. It might make sense to have a consultant. If you are 22 and just want to figure out what you want to do before you're 30, you can probably get a long way on your own.
You could probably just get any kid, with parents' permission, of course. And the kid will ask you why. And at some point you'll get there.
We'll try.
Go out there, get a kid.
Yeah, so basically he asked me a lot of questions, listened to a lot of things, and he kind of challenged, is this more important than that? What is unique about this thing? What is your talent here? Why are you more suitable for this than someone else? Or why are you less suitable for this than someone else? And he took all of those answers and kind of saw, okay, here's the pattern. And these are what you really care about. Or better yet, he came back to me and said, this is how I understand what you really care about. Is this true? And it became apparent for me when he came with it, like, yeah, if I have to prioritize, I would prioritize this way. It's just that all of these 5 things are so important for me, so I keep talking about all of them. But the top one is probably 80% of the total importance. But I don't talk about that 80%. I don't think about that 80%. But when turning it into a vision, then, so if you take the traveling example, maybe you really, really want to see the wall of China, but you would also like to go on a party trip to Ibiza, and you would like to drink wine by the Eiffel Tower. But most of you are really, really passionate about that wall of China. But you waste your time on the Ibiza trip because, well, you didn't really think through what you really wanted.
So did Mike make you see anything you weren't aware of before?
Yeah, we can move on and see what this vision actually mean, and I can explain how this is different from what I've saw before. So we can go over the kind of.
So what is the vision?
So the vision is split up in 3 different things, where the first one is called Do Great Good, and we've summarized that up.
Before you begin, maybe someone is here for the first time. Could you quickly summarize what is Great going to do? What is the business model?
let's go through the first kind of vision part, and I'll explain how that ties into the business model.
Right.
I think that makes sense. So the first thing here is that we want to do great good. That's like our top pillar. And we're going to do that by make a big impact on the world's problems in a highly focused way. And that's a bit of a complex sentence. So what do you hear when I say that?
Say it again.
Make a big impact on the world's problems in a highly focused way.
Okay. I hear that somehow pick one cause where we think we have a great opportunity to make a change. So probably that would be a cause that maybe hasn't received that much attention yet, so that there is a bigger chance to be able to have an impact, and then focus there.
Yeah, more or less. So for me, the key words here is focus. Like, we're not going to try and change everything. We're never going to accomplish to do that. We will focus on one place where we can make a big impact. And that means that we want to focus on one big problem so we can hopefully have a long impact on that as well and make a big difference over time. So that's one of the key things in doing great good. And same thing ties into what you just said. We want to use the resources to the maximum effect. So how would you understand that?
So say the second one again.
Use our resources to maximum effect.
Okay. So be really careful and thought through where we make donations, so we make sure to pick projects that have a high return of investment.
Yeah, that sums it up well. I like this way of doing it. You kind of explaining my words. And
it's great for you, then you can correct me if I didn't understand you right. And we see if this is vague too.
Yeah. And we want to inspire others to do good for the world.
Say it again.
Inspire others to do good for the world.
Okay, so one really cool thing about GREAT is that the organization will give away 100% of its profits to charity. And the reason GREAT can do that is because you, Erik, have been successful in other businesses before and don't really need this project as a way to earn an income. Now, I think one really cool thing about GREAT is that if you could inspire just one other entrepreneur that is in a similar situation to run a similar project, then maybe you could double the impact that GREAT is doing. So it's probably a small chance that would happen, but the effect of that could be huge. That's one way, and of course the way we work, the way we communicate, the way you and I have a conversation, hopefully all of that will be able to influence people around us to improve their lives.
Yeah, so basically we want to be a role model in a way to operate this.
I like the word role model, yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. So this is like the overarching pillar that Mike found when I was talking. It's like, okay, what you seem to care the most about is to make a difference. And then this was kind of how we defined how to make a difference. Where one thing then was to make as much difference as possible and do big difference. Because either we could focus on a lot of small things or focus on one big thing. So he kind of found like, okay, you seem to have a passion for focusing your energy somewhere and making the most out of that, learning a lot about that and making that. So that became like one of the things that he found. And then, okay, you want to use your resources to the maximum effect. Like it was clear that I was passionate about data and numbers and like, okay, I don't want to throw away money somewhere. I really want to know that this matters. And it was also clear that we wanted to inspire. That became a big thing. And by doing this and doing this publicly on a podcast and things like that, we can hopefully have a ripple effect. It's like we're throwing a rock in the water with what we're doing, and hopefully all of these little rings turns into other businesses or affect people somehow. So that became the main overarching goal. And I think you summarized it pretty well. Like, we want to make money, we want to give it away, and we want to do that with similar businesses that I've been running before. If you want to hear more about the actual business model, you can check out the episode great.com in 30 minutes. I think it's number 22 or 23. So I actually explained the business more at length there. So this is the main overarching pillar. And it kind of ties in then to the second pillar of this, which Mike found like, okay, we want to be a great moneymaker. We want to come up with ways to actually make a lot of money, and that can be done in a lot of different ways. But we summarize this by create an influential business with an enduring financial legacy. And that's complicated words. So I kind of expect you to say, can you read it again, please?
Can you read that again, please?
Create an influential business with an enduring financial legacy.
Okay, so enduring financial legacy means that it needs to be stable enough to be able to pay for our costs and make profit for a long time. But what do you mean with influential?
So basically, to me, it means that it's going to be a large-scale business that can influence industries in general to the better as well. So if we start in casino, we still want to impact the industry as well, one way or another.
So you could say influential could mean powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
It's a nice pickup.
Yeah.
That was a word I haven't thought through completely clearly. So yeah. So basically it would mean we want to create something that is gonna be big for a long term, more than chasing a trend. So if we believe that something is happening tomorrow that's gonna be really big for 3 years, that's not an opportunity that we want to jump on. We want to be on something that we believe can be away for a long time. So this kind of helps us guide, should we try to be big in esports betting right now because that's something they're talking a lot about, or do we believe more in the long-term stability of casino that's been around for hundreds of years? It's like, are we gonna take a shot, or are we gonna focus on a long-term thing?
Right.
Helps us to make that decision.
And of course we're gonna have more short-term goals as well, but we'll get into that in the next episode of this podcast where we talk about strategy.
Yeah.
But that's the vision for how we will operate.
Yeah, and the second thing on becoming a great moneymaker is develop high quality products with a long-term profitability.
Again?
Develop high quality products with a long-term profitability.
Okay, so we spend more time creating our products, not being too eager to make money in the beginning, because those higher quality products, even though they take longer time to build, will be able to make us money longer because of the quality.
Yeah, so this ties into an enduring financial legacy. If we are making a decision, should we build something that will have a great payday 5 years from now, or something that can pay off early, we will take the long-term bet. So it helps us to take that decision. And once again, even if I'm not in the room then, or people in the organization can know that this is how we're thinking about these things. That makes it easier to make the decision. And the third one is manage risks well. And that's, what do you understand from that one? Manage risks well.
Well, if we want this organization to be around for a long time, we can't lose all of our money or take any silly risks.
No. Yeah, we basically want to play it safe.
Yeah.
So I explained this in the way we spoke about this on a meeting where I think it was you who challenged me in the terms of how cautious I was with spending money for this organization. And I said that I don't consider this to be my money. I consider this to be money that we're giving away, which means that it's not worth to do an Elon Musk and bet everything I have on that we can put a rocket into space.
Would be cool though.
Would be cool though. But I can't do that because I feel that I'm gambling with something else. If I was gambling with just my own name or my private yacht, I feel that I could do that. But I don't feel that we can do it now. So we're going to be a lower risk organization that we would have been otherwise. Yeah,
Makes
so
sense.
that's guiding principles on be a great moneymaker, how we want to actually build the organization.
And what is the third out of three pillars?
We want to work in great ways. And this was one of the ones that my good friend Emil challenged it in terms of terminology. Why did you do that?
Well, to be fair, it wasn't me that challenged it. I just came up with a different way to phrase it. Now, it was Angelica in the team. She didn't like the word work, because for her, great doesn't feel like working. This is an expression of her passion, right? And I kind of feel the same. I actually kind of like the word work. It's something masculine in me likes it, like, yeah, let's work. But yeah, I totally get where she's coming from. This is in many ways a heart project.
Yeah, I think we landed on that we wanted the word passion in there as well. Passionately work in great ways, or something like that. And basically that means that we will be a deeply values-driven organization.
On the word work, I think you have a nice perspective that at least works for me and great about the difference between paying and enabling.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Yeah, so to touch upon this is, again, then the classical thing about paying someone a salary is, to me, that means I get someone to do something they don't really want to do, and in return they get money.
Yeah.
For me, that's kind of the definition of salary, and that's how organizations are built in general. It's like, I give you money, and in return you scoop away some crap here for me, kind of. And I believe that it's possible to build an organization where everyone loves what they're doing, and they want to be there. And then there isn't really a need for a salary. There isn't a need to pay someone to do something they don't want to do. But there's still a need for these people to live and to survive and to pay for food and rent and stuff. So personally, I believe in enabling. Like, I make this possible for someone rather than I'm paying them to do this. So in the same, let's say you were an artist, you were painting paintings. And I don't necessarily want to buy your paintings, but I want to enable you to keep making paintings because I think they're good for the world. So I'm giving you a salary, quote unquote, then, or I'm paying you to just be able to do what you want. And that means that I'm enabling you to keep painting because I think it's good for the world. And this is the same situation here, where I would love us to be in a place where great is enabling all of us to make something we're passionate about and to make a difference, rather than working and getting a salary.
Cool.
I hope this made sense.
That made sense, yes.
Yeah, so this ties then back into work in great ways, or passionately work in great ways, where the first one is that with great, we want to be a deeply values-driven organization. What do you hear when I say that?
Well, I have a question, and that is, what values are you talking about then?
That's a valid question.
Because otherwise it's difficult to understand that one.
That's a difficult question. In very short, values that I care a lot about and that I think goes through the entire organization is transparency and be very open with what we're doing. Generosity, that we're caring a lot about others. Caring in general, that we care for each other. Long term, if that's a value, like, okay, we're not doing this to get somewhere tomorrow. We're doing this because we want to do it for a long term and we believe in the cause. So that's just a few of the values that comes to mind, and we haven't actually specified this clearly. So it's probably a good idea to do an episode about this in the future, where we go through actually what values we want to have here. There's
likely to be an episode about values in the future. But what I hear you say is that it's important, company culture is important for us, and we will spend time and resources to make sure that everybody in the team understands this and are willing to contribute to these values.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say company culture instead of values, or like people are important.
And I think we already have that. So it kind of becomes important then to, well, I think this is interesting. So right now we are 7 people, and I feel like we already share similar values and we are prioritizing them. How do you see the challenge then of scaling this organization up? How would you keep these values if you become 30 people, 100 people, 200 people? Do you think it's possible?
I think it's really, really hard. Basically, the faster you grow, the harder it is to maintain a culture. And if we were to grow slowly, it's probably doable. Personally, I want to be in an organization where I know everyone. Where it's like, okay, I know what your fiance's name is. I know what your dog's name is. I want to be in a place where I know what you care about. And I think that that's maybe doable up to like 30 people, that everyone can kind of know each other.
Unless you have Anki, but that's for another episode.
Yeah, that's Emil going on a nerdy sidetrack. Let's leave it at that. Yeah, I think that the way to actually have real and genuine relationships stops at 30. So the way I envision it right now is to get to a point where we have a core team of 30 people that can embody these values, and then we'll see what happens after that. I think it's going to be really, really challenging to do this with more than 30 people. Yeah.
Next one.
Yes. The next one. We want to practice radical honesty and transparency.
Again?
We want to practice radical honesty and transparency.
Those two words are kind of similar for me. I don't get a clear image what that would look like in practice. And I think we have quite some way to go to embody that.
How do you mean with a way to go?
So I think in the beginning when we started this podcast, we talked about filming all the meetings, putting everything out there. And it's just that when the word radical is there, in my head I hear it's more than just speaking the truth. It's like, yeah, it seems like there should be something more than what is normal. And quite something extreme more is what I hear from that word.
Okay, so for example, when we're putting our salaries out publicly, is that extreme?
Extreme to me would be like, I don't like that person, or I don't like working here, or I don't like this task, or I would like to do something completely different, or saying something that is true, that is against social condition to let out.
Okay.
I think that's radical for me.
Okay, I see that. I want to be there.
Yeah.
And I can see why that's challenging.
I'm not sure those were the best examples, because now I only brought up negative things. But to summarize that, I'd say things that would be against the norm, social conditions. Be much more honest than what my instinct would be.
Yeah, so basically, if you are considering to resign and leave the job, that's something that you would probably keep a secret until you actually resign in a different business.
That's a great example. Yeah.
And we want to be in a place where someone feels safe enough to say that more or less day one they start thinking it.
Yeah, I don't like these tasks. I'm considering to leave the company if I have to keep doing these tasks.
Yeah.
And that is faced with support.
Yeah, so basically to sum this one up then, we want a culture where people feel safe enough to say that, and where they actually do.
Yeah.
And when we deal with that in a very good way. That's radical honesty. And I think that's definitely what I want to happen.
Yeah. It's probably for a strategy call to talk about this. We didn't include that in our strategy meeting. So right now I think we don't really have a strategy for implementing this.
I'd say that we are already doing this more than any other organization I know.
I think so too, but I don't think we have a strategy to get better at the moment. Or maybe we do that as a passion project.
Yeah, let's put that aside and we'll come back to that someday. So the last thing on Working Great Ways is that we want to continuously grow our expertise and skills. What do you hear when I say that?
That we want the company and everyone that works there to continuously get better by focusing on developing skills and personal development and things like that.
Yeah, basically that learning is a key thing. We're not aiming to be experts at anything right now, but learning will always be something we are striving towards. So we're running a bit short on time, so I'll wrap these up quite quickly and then we'll take a few more things. So what these are all things that Mike found when I was talking about this, and was like, okay, this is something Erik cares a lot about. This is something Erik cares a lot about. This is something Erik cares a lot about. But what he saw when I was really talking about this was how passionately I started talking about how these three things tie together. Like, we want to make a big impact. And because we want to make a big impact, we want to be a great moneymaker. And since we're working with Google and search, and we're going to give everything away, and links and publicity is a very important thing about that. It's another episode. Go back to the episode 23 again to understand this. They are really strengthening each other. So the fact that we're giving it away will help us to make more money to give away. And the same thing goes for working in great ways. That is also something that will drive a lot of publicity and will strengthen our money-making leg. So how I spoke about this, when these three things kind of tied together like a strong rope, that became something really unique about what we're doing. And I feel that this is hard to explain briefly, but that if there is one thing that is unique about Great, it is that those three things tie so well together. So it kind of, those three things became the unique thing. Did this make sense?
Yeah, I thought it makes sense. And I can see how your energy is lighting up when you talk about this.
Yeah, you see, I'm really passionate about how those things play together.
I know, but how do you feel now when the vision is set? You look at it on paper. How do you feel about it?
I think the first feeling that came to me when I saw this, well, maybe not the first feeling, but the strongest feeling was actually fear. That when it's just in my head, it's kind of impossible to fail because no one knows what I'm trying to do. When it's on a paper, it's suddenly tangible. It's like, okay, you can actually see, has this happened, has it not happened? And it became overwhelming for me to see these things on paper. I was happy to see it. I felt like this became more real. But from real was really close to like, whoa, I'm way in too deep already in this. And the more I've been thinking about it, the more taking this into the strategy that we will talk about on the next call, the more I feel, okay, it's actually doable. So then it becomes empowering. But yeah, the first feeling was definitely overwhelming and like, whoa, we'll see where this goes. How did you feel when you heard this?
I felt clarity, especially combined with the strategy meeting that we had, that we'll talk about in the next episode. I felt a lot of excitement, and I felt the same emotion that I think made Johanna cry when she saw it. And that is that it was such a milestone to see someone else explain your vision. Because I think that I kind of know what's going on in your head to a certain degree, because we talked about it so much. But to have it on paper and see someone that is coming from outside the organization explain this, it made it into an entity of its own, kind of like a living thing. And I think that was touching me, and it was touching Johanna deeply. So yeah, I think the realness of it all made her cry.
Makes sense. It became an entity.
Yeah.
A living organism with its own values. Yeah, I can see that.
This is a good time to wrap up. Don't forget to check the next week's episode about strategy, how we're gonna get here, how we're gonna reach the mission. And if you have any suggestions or any topic you would like for us to explore or anything, send us an email to podcast@great.com. And we'll see you next week.
Cheerio!
Cheerio, mate. Ciao.